Powered by Purpose is the theme for Leadercast 2017, and today's discussion will feature Jim Thomsen with Tom and Abigail Dodds talking about how what we do plus why we do it equals purpose. As president of Thrivent Holdings, Jim Thomsen provides strategic direction and leadership to numerous Thrivent financial affiliates, all sharing in the mission of helping more Christians be wise with money and live generously. Mr. Thomsen joined the Thrivent team in 1986 and the senior executive management team in 2001. Visiting with Jim today will be husband and wife Tom and Abigail Dodds. Abigail is a gifted writer, speaker, and homemaker that seeks to know and love God more each day. Abigail's husband Tom is the chief executive officer at slashBlue. slashBlue serves values-driven organizations by helping them use technology to achieve their company's mission. Tom and Abigail have 5 children and are both active with their church. Can you please give a warm welcome to Jim, Tom, and Abigail?
Tom and Abigail Dodds and Jim Thomsen and I had an opportunity to get together a few weeks ago, and in some ways that I wish that we would have just recorded that session. It was fantastic. And I think what we talked about was, how do we get to this point in our lives where we are powered by purpose? And how did Jim and Tom and Abigail get to that point where, as parents, they understood what their purpose was, and as business owners? And I think one of the things that we talked about was that there was a real specific time in our lives that we felt like it was a pivoting point. And, Jim, you talked about how did you reach that pivoting point, and what did you do to actually discern the direction to go?
Yeah, we had this conversation a couple of weeks ago, and I agree it was a great conversation. Wish I would have recorded it, because it was great to hear stories from the Dodds and to hear Alan's story as well. But one of the questions that you asked is, can you think about a time in your life where your purpose was really defined? And I've kind of been struggling with that question ever since over the last couple of weeks. I'm 54 years old, full disclosure, and I feel like I'm kind of an infant when it comes to understanding purpose and practicing purpose. But what I have learned in that time is to really trust this idea of calling, and to really actively listen for God's call, and then trusting it and putting it into practice. Example of that, I was thinking, and of course in hindsight, everything makes perfect sense. We kind of understand the path that's been taken. It has been on purpose, and I actually believe it's God's purpose. But I think about a time when my wife and I were living in Colorado. I've spent my entire 31-year career with Thrivent, but we've lived in a number of different places. We've lived in Los Angeles, and Colorado, and Chicago, and the last decade or more here in Minneapolis. And but our time in Colorado was really one of those sweet times in life. Our kids were babies. We lived in this idyllic community called Evergreen, Colorado. I don't know if any of you have ever been there. It's Colorado, an Evergreen person in the room. But there's it's at 8,000 feet. There are literally herds of elk walking through the front yard, and we thought we'd be there forever. My wife and I said, we have arrived. And so we made plans, to stay in Colorado, and I love the adage, people make plans and God laughs. And we got a call from our CEO at the time, and he said, Jim, I'd love you to consider going to Chicago. There's a bit of a turnaround situation. I kind of laughed at him. But said, Kathy and I will talk about it. And I came home and told Kathy, and we both laughed again. Yeah, right, we're going to move to Chicago. But then we did take it seriously, and when Kathy and I make decisions together, we usually go off in our own corners, think about it, pray about it, actively listen, and then we come back and regroup. And we did that. A few days later, we came back and we did our Ben Franklin deal, where we had all the reasons we should stay in Colorado and all the reasons we should move to Chicago. And I'll never forget it. We had, both of us had a couple dozen reasons, including the elk walking through the front yard, why we should stay in Colorado. But both of us had one sentence on that right-hand side of the column of going to Chicago, and that was, this just feels like something we're supposed to do. And so we made the move, and I think, and of course, in hindsight now, we can see the perfect plan. And it was so good for our family. It was terrific from a vocational standpoint. And so we've learned to listen and learn to trust that call.
So you said actively listen, and how would you describe that again?
Yeah, I think active listening to me is different from listening. For me, it's prayer. It's actually stopping and asking and really listening for the call. And you literally, I think you physically have to stop yourself in order to make that happen.
Mm-hmm. Very intentional about it. Yeah. Abigail, how about you? When you think about a pivotal point for you in discerning your purpose in life, what comes to mind, and how did you get to that point?
Right. Well, I think what I first think of is that a lot of times our giftings or the things that we feel we're good at don't often seem to apply to whatever task is right in front of us. And it feels like a mismatch. Like I've been given these things that I feel I'm good at, and what's in front of me doesn't seem to relate to those things. And I feel I've run into that a lot in my life, where whatever's in front of me doesn't seem very relevant to maybe the things that I would prefer to do or that seem like I would be good at. We have a son with special needs, and no one asked me beforehand if I thought I would be good at that. I had no desire to go into nursing. And so when I find myself doing things like changing a G-tube, I think, I don't know that I was going in this direction. But what I've learned in doing things that we maybe don't see as immediately relevant to our purpose or what we think we're made for is that oftentimes there's a mess that's made when we're working hard on something, whether it's something we're good at or something we feel we're not very equipped for. So an example of this, I don't know if it sounds very pivotal to anyone, but I love to bake. And so I bake a lot, and it always makes a big mess. I mean, it just does. There's a huge mess in the kitchen. And that mess is not a sign that something has gone wrong. It's a sign of progress. It's a sign that something's going very right. And so learning that is kind of a paradigm shift for me, because I want everything to be very neat and tidy. I want everything to be very clean. And I feel like progress ought to feel that way. It ought to feel tidy and clean and easy, but it doesn't. It feels wild and chaotic. And that's true whether the mess is literal, like what I deal with, or whether it's figurative. I do a lot of writing, and my thoughts get really messy before I'm able to put down something that makes sense. And that's progress. That shouldn't have me scared off. That shouldn't make me want to quit. But that is part of how we get to the other side of having done something that is purposeful, that is meaningful. And so my encouragement is just to be willing to walk through the mess. It's not always going to be a mess. We can clean up after supper. It's not always going to be a mess. Sometime we are going to have the words on the page that make sense to someone. But mess is a sign of progress. It's not a sign that something's gone wrong.
Progress happens in the messy parts of life. I like that. And just today, visiting with several of you that, as I'd mentioned before, in job transition, career transition, selling companies, having children, things that are unexpected, some that are planned, but then there'll be aspects of the things that you planned that are really different than what you expected. So, it's not a bad thing. That's where progress takes place. So Tom, how about you? When you think back on a pivoting point in defining your purpose, what comes to mind, and how did you arrive at that place?
It's a beautiful privilege to walk through the beautiful mess with you, so I'm most thankful for that. That was a huge pivoting point in my purpose. I wanted to talk about a pivot point that happened in my work life. Perhaps many of you have faced a similar kind of thing. It was 2003, and I got a call from the CTO in London letting me know they were laying off US software development. And it felt like in a moment, everything that I had worked for was gone. And just washed away, blew away, and that nothing was enduring or staying. And I thought, what am I going to do? I'd poured my life out into this company, and I had injured my hands and overworked them on the computer. I had emails, that were overwhelming and stressful all day long in this technology-driven environment, and it was just so difficult to live out a purpose in that environment. And I thought I had this job that I was making money, providing for my family. That was gone. We just found out that we were going to have our first child, a daughter. I thought, how am I going to provide? I had a career that I was good at, and I enjoyed doing the work, apart from some of the environment challenges. But I was running into this limit every day. I'd get up in the morning, I wasn't excited to go to work. And it was almost like a relief in some ways, but I was scared about what I was going to do. I didn't know what I was going to do. So I had to, Abigail helped me in this. What do I believe about my purpose? And I looked at the rest of my life, and that, I have a beautiful wife and a daughter on the way and a family and people that have poured into my life and invested in me. And I had a God who I believed was working for my good. I thought, this isn't so bad. Everything else, my purpose is beyond work. It's got to match and mesh with everything else. And I thought, what am I going to do? I really didn't want to go back and work at a place where I felt so stressed every day, and I had this pit in my stomach. And I knew that the work that I was doing wasn't going to be very helpful as I'd hoped. I wasn't able to care for coworkers in the way that I wanted. It was so driven. And I hoped for a different kind of a place where people could come to work and use their God-given talents every day. I've got such a hope here for this technology. Technology can be used for good. And so I'm going to start a company and take that entrepreneurial zeal that I've had, personal purpose, you find that, I'm good at technology, and let's go for it, because it's worth something bigger. It's not all only about providing. It's about providing a great place to work and being able to use technology so that somebody could pick it up and say, this is actually helping me do my job. It's not creating all this stress and this noise for me. When I look at the system, like a CRM system is selling something to customers or working with customers, I want it to help remind me that I'm human, that I'm trying to connect to real people. It's not some barrier that's in the way, that this technology actually helps me connect to people that I want to connect to, that I can really help and make a difference in their lives and help them do their jobs better and serve them with a Christ-like love that is going to be that legacy. Andy Stanley talked about being a means. That's what I believe my means is to show a Christ-like love to others. And so I wanted to do that. That was the hope. And so started the company, slashBlue, and it's been as you said, Abigail, a beautiful mess ever since. So I get to wake up to that kind of a beautiful mess every day too. Diapers at home, beautiful mess of technology at work. Technology, there's some metaphor in there for changing diapers, but I'm not going to go there. So a purpose is really, taking the courage to do something greater than myself and to live that out.
Don't seek opportunities. This is Jim McElvey. Don't seek opportunities, solve problems. And you saw a problem out there about integrating technology into people's lives in appropriate ways. And that's exactly what you did, what Jim spoke on this morning, which is a great lesson for all of us, right? So you talked about active listening and searching for your purpose. And I think there are 3 different things that you talked about that are keys to that activeness. And I think that you said spending time in the Bible, and I think you said also praying. But there was a third one, and it had to do with some examples were Karsten and...
Yeah, it was really... So it's one thing, I think, to actively listen and to really hear God's call, whether it's in vocation or whether it's in a family decision, and then having the courage to actually trust it and act on it. Mm-hmm. And that's to me that for me personally, that's been a learned behavior. And the more action you take and the more trust you take, the more that seems to be I don't know if rewarded is the right word, but it actually seems to begot more purpose. And so to me, it's actively listen, pray, study, act, trust, repeat for me.
Act, trust, repeat. Yeah. Abigail, one note that I had with you, comment on this. You realize that sometimes my challenge is to find creative ways to utilize my calling and gifting. Can you give us examples of how you go about doing that?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think one really wonderful thing about technology these days is that it has really changed the game for stay-home moms, or for even for families who want to prioritize their home or their kids, because the internet connects us to the whole world. And so we don't have to any longer think about being at home as somehow being cordoned off in a silo, where we can't be connected to the working world or to what's happening out there, because we are connected. And so that's been a blessing for me. It's allowed me to write more broadly, and to be able to study and do research in areas that would not have been available to me otherwise. And so I think being creative and thinking outside the box about what we can do is so important. It just allows us to do things that we couldn't have even conceived of, 20 or 30 years ago. And it allows for me to make our children a priority, a high priority, without making them the only priority, so that we can love our kids well, but they aren't necessarily the center of the universe, and they know that there are other things happening that are important that we want to prioritize and work on. And so I've found that to be just a wonderful gift, and to redeem the internet and use it in a way that that's going to be for other people's good, rather than all the really horrible ways that it's used, the dark ways that it's used. We want to use it in ways that shine light into the world, and we can do that right from our homes.
Tom, describe very briefly how slashBlue is able to go and help organizations utilize technology in more effective ways.
It starts with understanding purpose, and that can be, as we've found this morning, a difficult and elusive thing. But there's pieces of it that are everywhere that we can grab a hold of. So we know what people believe. You think it's something out there that's this inspirational kind of experience, or it's about finding myself, it's about doing what I'm passionate about. And we hear a lot of these kind of platitudes. But, as Jim said, it's about the journey of listening. And that's our whole lives. We've been believing things that we know we can hold on to that are true. So I think it starts with, what do you believe? What do you believe about why has God put you here? For me personally, as an organization, why are you here together as a group of people? What is at the end of the day that you're going to leave behind you that is significant, that you're going to say, this is why we are here together? And so we have to discover the purpose, and then that drives everything to say, let's get all this, as Abigail said, the noise of technology out of the way, and the few key things that are going to help you to be most productive every day. And so whatever that tool is or that system, it's understanding how it contributes to your God-given talents. So think about a carpenter. They pick up a hammer in the morning, and they're trying to build a deck, and they're pounding nails, and the guy says, boy, my elbow's killing me at the end of the day. And they go to the hammer store and say, I need a different hammer, my elbow's killing me. And, if you pick the hammer out of the wall, you can sell it to them, that might be fine. But we ask about the purpose, and they say, well, I got to pound in 3,000 nails. Let me introduce you to a pneumatic nail gun. And we'll show you how to use it. We'll show you how to get all your nails to the right job for the right job every day. And then you can go home, and by the way, you can throw that baseball with your son again. You can wake up the next day and not feel the pain the same degree that you felt it before, and you're getting that work done. So we're like a hammer store salesman that helps you use the whole pneumatic nail gun and line up your entire supply chain. And so in the end of the day, you buy it because it's pounds and nails, but you're much more satisfied. You can play baseball with your kids again, and you're able to make more of a difference that way.
So it's not just using a tool, but it's using it effectively in ways in which are creative and maybe messy. And we're not just pounding nails, we're building a home. This is where we're going to raise our children, right? This is where we're going to have meals and we're going to serve other people. So it's not just pounding nails, it's building a home. If there was one thing about purpose that you wanted to leave the audience with, Jim, something that has meant a lot to you or is important to you that you would like to just pass on to them about purpose, what would it be?
Yeah, and it's kind of come through, I think, as I've listened to Abigail and Tom and you, that purpose is a journey, and and you never really quite get there. I'm always a little suspect when I hear somebody say, "Well, I've found my lot in life and why I'm on the planet," and I think. To a certain extent, that's true for all of us, but it's why am I on the planet now, and what's God calling me to do now? Because I think that evolves and changes over time.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it's ever changing. We have to be willing to look and discover and be active. Abigail, how about you? One thing that you'd like to leave?
I think you don't have to live very long to realize that all of us come into this life sort of striving, trying to get what we want out of it, and trying to, for some of us, that might mean trying to make a difference, to have some kind of a legacy. For some of us, that might just mean, I really want to sleep 10 more minutes this morning, and I'm going to do whatever I can to make that happen.
I'm in for that.
But we're driven by what we want. And I think the realization for me that the life that I was hoping to live that would matter, doing the things through life that I'm hoping are going to be great and really matter, had already been lived for me. That realization that someone had already lived that life for me completely transforms my purpose. Knowing that God sent his son Jesus, and that Jesus lived that life for me, and he did it perfectly, and that he's the one who left the legacy that lasts forever, and he didn't just live, but that he died on the cross to take the suffering and the punishment for all my selfishness and all my yuck, and then that God raised him from the dead so that we can be joined with him and join in his purpose to do good, but that I don't have to prove it. Like, I don't have to strive to prove that I'm good enough, that I matter, and that there's forgiveness in him and love. And so that's the real transformational piece of purpose for me that absolutely has set me free. It has made each day meaningful, even if it seems small and mundane and ridiculous to the people around me. I don't have to live under that weight anymore, like, oh, I'm doing something so ridiculous, I want to matter. That's gone because Jesus matters, and he has invited me into something bigger. So that freedom to be able to serve in any realm with purpose is the most transformational thing in life, and that's what I would want to leave with you.
Tom, how about you? One thing.
The one thing is that our collective purpose is significant. It's greater than ourselves, and that when we come together at work, specifically, or in any place in life, but I've been talking about work, so that collective purpose binds us together, and that so when technology powering purpose at slashBlue, for us, that compels everyone to get up in the morning, and we discover purpose for clients. We design roadmaps on how to get there, and then we're doing the hard work of making that thing for people and serving them with a love, which means we're taking on challenges. It's technology people, hate when their computer freezes up. They hate when things don't work too, but they love to be able to serve, and so with a Christ-like love. And so everybody at slashBlue believes in that purpose. And so everybody contributes a unique aspect, even though they might not align completely with my worldview or what I believe, but we are all there for that shared purpose. And that's what allows us to get up in the morning and get through the really hard things. Like I got a couple people out there who sacrifice sleep to put up a table for us, to come talk to all of you about purpose. And so we just love to do that, and it helps to power us through every day, and to get through the really hard times, and to celebrate the highs all the more, because we know we've pulled together for something greater than ourselves, and that's where significance is. That meaning is in showing that love to one another. That's what's going to remain at the end of the day. And so I love how Jesus puts it simply: love God and love others. And that's what I try to do every day. And I know that it's greater than me, and it's not something I can possibly fulfill perfectly, but I don't have to. And I can enjoy running that race with the people that I run with every day. Our purpose together is greater than our own need.
That's been a theme today with really all of our speakers. I mean, with you guys, but what's been out of Atlanta is it's not about us. It's really not about our companies, but it's about the people that we serve. It's the people that we love. And I think if we all would just take that mindset, that our purpose really is to love other people. Whoever is brought in front of us each day, there's a reason that they're there. And what can we do just to take them one step closer to understanding what real true love is? So thank you guys. This is good. Yeah, thank you.